S14 out of S20 is sales role play. The big idea here is you need automated pitch practice at scale, happening at scale, to maximize retention rates and save leadership time. We're going to talk about the volume, the amount of role play that really needs to happen for reps. We're going to talk about role play priorities and how it relates to your sales process to better picture what the focus is for reps as they're learning the job. And then we're going to talk about, a few ideas around how to execute this, whether it's leadership, an owner, or AI, which is a solution as well. The focus here is prioritize key stages for role play, automated ideally, and align it with daily new hire onboarding. So we referenced it earlier, but the volume aspect of role play is fairly overwhelming. So it's 50 to 100 times, okay, for each one of the stages. If I'm a rep and I come on board and you have a university as an example, or you're doing live onboarding training, that's a preference, right? For obvious reasons, we think it should be automated, but regardless of how the rep learns the sales system, just because they've received the information, it doesn't mean that they've mastered the communication side of that information. Okay. And so reps, the way that they master that quickly is by role play. And reps need to practice each one of your stages 50 to 100 times to get to that point. So if you have, door knocking and setting appointments in your opportunity, and I'm canvassing, well, I have to actually practice that pitch ideally and role play, get feedback on those role plays 50 plus times to get to a place where I'm doing it perfectly or close to it, at least in a confident way. And so you can see how that's really difficult to do from a leadership perspective. If you onboard two, three, four, 5 reps or 10 reps, whatever the number is, even if you have full-time leadership and trainers, you can't spend hours with them practicing the pitch over and over and over again for them to get the repetition in. And therefore, because nobody can do it, because there's not enough time in the day, nobody does it and it kills retention rates. But also, it's really risky to invest time, which is another reason people don't do it. Because even if you onboard me and I start this coming week, and you invest all the time in the world to onboard me and to provide role play to the best of your ability, the problem is you don't know if I'm going to work out. So you can spend 5, 10, 20 hours with me, and then I produce nothing and bring no return to your recruiting financial or time investment. And so that's why from our perspective, it's a good idea to automate it. But it's important for you to understand that the volume piece is incredibly important. Um, the first topic that we talked about earlier, the university or the informational side, most companies, when they're recruiting, they're actively at least trying to do that well. And they're usually doing that live, meaning they'll spend 10, 20, 30 hours onboarding reps to get them the information that they think they need in hopes that they'll see success. And they typically have really low success, which is why they come to us. But at least they're attempting to provide that initial part, the informational side. But unfortunately, there's no time in the world to properly do role play. And this is one of the big reasons why you've never retained people or you have an issue with retention and scalable sales production because reps cannot practice. If I can't practice over and over and over again quickly enough in a commission-based role and I don't see quick enough success, then my confidence dies, my doubt increases, and I go find another opportunity. That's the nature of the beast in a commission-based model. So we need to collapse the learning curve and success as quickly as possible to get reps to produce and stick, regardless of the length of your sales cycle. And so the way to look at this is you start to, think about your stages, right? So let's say we have the direct to consumer, one where it's, the stages are territory management, I think we did yesterday, territory management, stage one. And then, stage two was knocking for the purpose of setting appointments. And then stage three was in-home presentation. Stage four was maybe close, or maybe that was inside of stage four. Anyways, this is just an example. And then stage five was referral. Okay. Just a hypothetical example. So we had, 5 stages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now, when it comes to role play, there are specific areas within the sales process in our stages that reps need to practice the scripting, right? And not every stage within your sales process, which is kind of the second topic inside of role play today, not every stage within your sales process is going to require role play, right? Obviously, territory management, that was like an administrative process of just getting assigned a territory, understanding the territory, and understanding how to properly operate within a territory and navigate within that market. And that's one of the core stages in that sales process. It's foundational to them having success in stage two, knocking, setting appointments. Well, knocking, this does require scripting and communication. The in-home presentation, this does require communication in the scripting. Close, this does, and referral probably does as well. So role play, as an example, would be tied to the stages that have communication layers within your sales system. And so, meaning that each one of these, in an ideal world, reps would practice 50 plus times. Okay. So this is 200 practices between all the four core stages that a rep needs to learn. It's a lot. Okay. Another example, the main one we've been using this week was, the 6 stages, right? Leads, cold call, cold call, discovery meeting, presentation meeting, and then follow up, and then close. Okay. We have our 6 stage process. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yesterday, if you remember, we were talking about, well, this is kind of an admin process, so that's not going to require, role play as it relates to our topic today. Calling, cold calling, that will require role play because that's a communication layer of the sales process. The discovery meeting, that will require role play. Presentation, obviously role play. Follow up, you could argue that that's not necessary to build out in role play because it's more of like a follow-up system and process, but you could build out role play for follow-up. In this example, I'm just going to say no. And then close, we talked about that being like an administrative process of, getting the agreement signed and getting the invoice paid. And again, these are just example stages. These are not your stages, but to illustrate what I'm saying here is in this example, when a rep comes on board, the second thing that they need outside of the informational side, which is, we talked about first, the university is role play. And in this example, they need to practice the outbound call 50 plus times, the discovery meeting 50 plus times, the presentation meeting 50 plus times. You're looking at 150 role plays to maximize your recruiting investment. If you recruit me and I'm the type of person that'll show up and work, then ideally you have a good enough system to retain me so I bring you production. And so it's worth developing the system that actually is going to save you time and increase retention rates and get you to production. And this is the volume of role play just within that one topic that needs to happen to maximize your return, which obviously we all want to do. Now, the way that this gets, structured in onboarding is it's really dependent on the model. Okay, so you know you want to get reps through the role plays as much as possible. On average, what we've seen is reasonable is 5 role plays a day, Monday through Friday, until they've gone through kind of the totality of the role play requirements. So in this example, let's say that there was 150 role plays in 3 stages that they needed that they needed to learn. Well, the rep needs to role play on the foundational stage before they get to the next, meaning that they need to master the outbound call in this example before they master the discovery. If they never master the call, then they're never going to have the discovery in the first place. Then they need to master the discovery before the presentation, right? It naturally follows. So that's going to happen within every sales process. But you also have a timeline that you're working with, meaning that you need to get reps ramped up as quickly as possible and get them to master the job as quickly as possible so that they ideally produce and stick and are happy with the role. And so what we have found is 5 role plays a day times 5 days a week for 2 weeks. This equals 50 role plays. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for 2 weeks, that's 10 days, 5 role plays a day, that's 50 role plays. Okay. Obviously, really difficult to do if you're doing it live, but you can automate these things. We'll come back to that in a second. So let's say that we come back here and I have this 6 stage sales process, but we realize that we need them to practice and do role play on 3 stages. Well, if we've come to the conclusion that they're going to do 5 role plays a day for 2 weeks to get 50 role plays per stage, well, in that example, there would be 6 weeks of role plays, right? In this example, for the first 2 weeks of onboarding, I'm going to do 2 weeks of role play on the outbound call. In weeks 3 and 4, I'm going to do role play on the discovery call every single day, 5 days a week, 5 times a day. In weeks 5 and 6, I'm going to do five presentation role plays a day. And then by the end of 6 weeks, I've actually gone through all this volume. Okay. So that's what would happen in a perfect training environment, which is obviously what we want to maximize retention rates. So that's a little bit about role play and structure and how it aligns with your stages. The third thing to understand is that it's obviously important, which is why we're covering it, but somebody needs to execute it. In short, you're going to have leadership execute this, which they will fail to hit the volume even if you have full-time leadership, or you're going to leverage things like Rep Coach AI, which is an internal tool that we have specifically for our clients to automate it. So as an example, we can take your ICPs, your offers, your scripts, your objections, your FAQs, all the communication layers of your sales process, your stages, and custom design a role play automation simulation where reps can log into your account specifically for your company and practice with AI customers that mirror your AI customers. They can practice the pitch that they learned inside of the university or live if you're doing onboarding live. They can practice the pitch with AI customers that mirror your exact sales experience and submit those role plays and get coaching exactly on how they did per the sales system they learned. And they can do that on autopilot over and over and over and over again without the leadership time investment. You just simply manage the behind, you know, metrics of it. Like, are they doing it? Have they executed it? How are they doing? And so what's really cool about this is the negative thing is that, man, having to do that, assuming we want to provide the best onboarding experience we possibly can, which we should want to, if we were to do that, that sucks live, but it doesn't have to suck anymore because you can actually automate it. So it's important for you to understand that it's important. Somebody has to execute it, and it's either going to be an owner, a sales manager, or tech. And the easiest way to do it to ensure that it happens perfectly and at scale quickly enough is to do it through tech. And so 50 plus times per stage. We talked about the volume daily, weekly, so you kind of understand how that would fit in an onboarding process and how that's tied to each one of your stages. And we covered, that somebody needs to execute on it. So that's a little bit about S14 sales role play. The big idea here is you need automated pitch practice happening at scale to maximize retention rates and save leadership time. And you need to prioritize key stages for role play, automate it ideally, and align it with daily new hire onboarding. Daily new hire onboarding, like I talked about, which in that last example was the first 6 weeks going through 3 stages. Hopefully that makes sense.